Boston's sexual history. Boston is a beautiful place to live. The home of Harvard University, MIT, and has some of the best hospitals in the country. It's known for its wealthy history. It's a great place to raise your kids, and the job industry is booming. However, like any other town, Boston has its fair share of after-dark secrets. Some don't know that, like Amsterdam, Boston had its own red light district. It was called the Combat Zone. The 1960s. In the 1960s, Boston's Chinatown was turned into a live adult entertainment area. This is what it looked like. In the 60s, the Combat Zone was a place for military men and male college students. There were live strippers, movies, and naked booths. Others came as tourists to be able to say they had been there, similar to Vegas. Back then, women didn't get nude quickly. They took off a piece of clothing each song. There were no stripper poles back then, no twerking. The Playboy Club. Yes, Boston had its own Playboy Club, located on Boylston Street in Boston. They had troubles getting licensures for food and beverage and alcohol, but they managed to open their doors. To get a feel of the Playboy bunnies, enjoy this clip of the bunnies now and then.
I would have a bunny dressed in her uniform go over to one of the malls, and she would sell $1,000 worth of $25 a piece worth of memberships in one afternoon. They would line up to buy this little card to the Playboy Club because there was a bunny.
If you took 5 women and stood them up in front of you in a bathing suit, you'd look at them and say, 5 pretty girls. You take them out of the room, you put them in a bunny costume with the ears and the tail, you put them back in front of you, and you see a whole different visual. It's all about illusion. Hugh Hefner is the master of illusion. When you see those bunny ears and you saw that tail, what are you thinking?
Remember my training bunny telling me, first and foremost, you wouldn't be here if there was not something special about it.
A former bunny, Verde Sam, rides with me and shares her experience being a bunny and how Boston was in the 1970s and 80s.
And we had to know what drink. Like if you wanted a highball, we had to know to get a highball glass. If you wanted a martini, we had to know to get a martini glass. So the first thing you had to do was learn all the glasses. After that, the next segment was on your makeup. You had to wear 2 pairs of false eyelashes at all times. You had to have lip gloss on at all times. You had to wear 2 pairs of stockings, a pair of support pantyhose, and a pair of sheer black stockings. You had to wear high heels. You had to always have your costume crisp and clean. Nobody else was to wear your costume, and you didn't wear anybody else's. They were custom made to your body. Now, in the Playboy Club, first of all, you got a cocktail. You can't sit on that. But more than that, Hugh Hefner thought that a bunny sitting down just didn't look right. It wasn't elegant. It didn't show your long legs, the silhouette, and all that. So you had to perch. Even when you were giving people drink, you couldn't bend over. You had to perch.
Right here.
It was right there. And the front face Boylston Street, back face Stewart Street.
Okay, so it was on Boylston
It was
Street,
on Stewart Street.
which is in front of us.
The back.
From the start, there were those people who didn't want the club in the area anyways. This shows them picketing. In 1969, the club made the news after 2 of its managers were killed in an attempted robbery. Hefner offered a $10,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of the killer, and a 25-year-old man from Georgia was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison. By 1977, sadly, the club closed its doors. The 1970s. Our bunny describes another club, the Sugar Shack, as we drive down Boyd.
Yeah,
Some
it
hoes
was
hung out.
It's like right here with this.
And when was that? Like in the 70s, 80s?
Yeah, that was in the 70s. The same people who own the Playboy Club own the Sugar Shack. That's why I used to go in there, because I felt very protected.
As we cruise down Washington Street in Chinatown, she shows me where the clubs were located. Right here was
LaGrange Street.
the
That's where it
sex
was. That's
district.
where the whole club was, right
I
there.
can't go down that street.
You can't
Oh,
go
I
down the
can.
street. No, it was right
Just
there.
to a certain point.
Yeah, it was right there
And
where
that
all the hoes
street-
used to congregate on LaGrange Street. Yeah, and all of these were X-rated clubs, X-rated movie theaters and strip clubs. And there was nothing around this area. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was nothing in this area but pimps and hoes.
This is what the inside entrance to a theater looked like. How a congressman lost his job falling for a stripper from the combat zone. Frequenting this strip club led to the demise of an Arkansas congressman, Wilbur Mills. He was one of the most powerful people in Congress at the time and was being considered for president or a potential Supreme Court justice. One night, driving down the road, Wilbur was pulled over by the police. He had a stripper from the glass slipper in his car. He also had a face full of scratches and a bloody nose. The Tidal Bassin story. Annie Fox, the stripper in the car, got out the car and jumped into the tidal basin. Cops got her out the river. She had 2 black eyes. Mills tried to deny being there, but eventually admitted to being there. He never explained the bruises. Mills still won re-election a month later, but couldn't stay away from Fannie Fox or the strip club. During one of Fannie's performances, the audience saw him peeking behind the curtain. Since he was already seen, Fannie introduced him to come on stage. "We have a special guest, Mr. Mills." He came on the stage, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and the next day he resigned from his position of 36 years as congressman. The real victim in this story was his wife, Polly. She had to suffer the public humiliation of her husband openly having a mistress that was a stripper. After resigning, he went into Alcoholics Anonymous. He became an advocate for addiction awareness. His wife stayed with him until he died in 1992. Fannie Fox, on the other hand, renamed herself after the river incident, the Tidal Bassin Bombshell, and wrote a book. In the book, she talked about how she was pregnant by him, how his wife would come to the strip club along with him occasionally, and that they fought all the time outside the club. The 1980s and 90s. By the late 1980s, the area became very rundown and the city decided to clean the area up. However, there are still 2 strip clubs on LaGrange Street, and the area is still an adult entertainment zone. But it's no longer the combat zone. Out with the combat zone and in with the Boston Phoenix newspaper. The Boston Phoenix was around for 50 years, and in the 80s, they made headlines for helping AIDS victims by handing out condoms to their subscribers. However, in the back of the newspaper, there were ads soliciting sex. Ladies would pay for an ad that was 4 lines long. This cost between $125 to $400. Ladies would advertise their sexual services in a free local newspaper. Many men and prostitutes knew about the back-page ads. This led to call girls instead of streetwalkers in the combat zone. The 2000s. Craigslist, a site for selling or trading items, turned into an outlet for prostitutes and pimps to sell sex. Craigslist killer. Philip Haynes Markoff was a 24-year-old American medical student studying at BU. He was charged with the armed robbery and murder of Jaleesa Brisman. Jaleesa Brisman was a 26-year-old aspiring model from New York City. She traveled a lot and told friends she would get paid for topless parties, but never said she was a call girl. April 2009, Jaleesa rented a room at the Copley Marriott and placed an ad on Craigslist offering masseuse services. Unfortunately, she ran into Mark. He had plans to rob the escorts he made dates with. However, he robbed and murdered her, and they caught him on surveillance. It was the Marriott. Trisha Leafler, his next victim. She was another call girl posting ads on Craigslist. Mark came in the door looking to rob her, pulled out a gun and zip ties. He got $800 out of her pocket and then zip tied her to the bathroom door and left. He never tried to hide his face, and he left fingerprints all over the place. He was a sloppy killer. Mark was engaged to Megan McAllister. She initially stuck by her man. However, she ended up breaking up with him. On the anniversary of the day they were supposed to get married, a year later, he committed suicide in the Nashua Street Jail. He cut his ankles and wrists, stuffed toilet paper down his throat, and wrote her name, Megan, in his blood before he died. He did not want to be resuscitated. Craigslist was also a place to find spas and massage parlors that offered more than a massage. It would include a happy ending, which indicated you received some type of sexual favor along with the massage. Here, 7 spa shop owners are accused of sex trafficking. Watch a Boston News clip about sex trafficking in Boston.
Say some customers were offered sexual favors after their scheduled massage.
I've literally never seen anyone go in there or out, but it does look like it's not up to regulation, so I'm not surprised.
Well, I think you can always distance it from yourself and think that this goes on in the world. You don't think it's happening so close to you.
The FBI arrested the owner, 47-year-old Dan Zhang. They say she exploited women, taking them to and from work, forcing them to perform sex acts, and giving them a fee, but cashing in on the rest. Police raided 4 of her spas in the Boston area, including Lisa Massage Therapy in Arlington, Sunflower Spa in Dracut, and Sunshine Spa and Massage in Stoneham. Undercover agents started watching the spas in June, eventually able to build a case, finally rescuing 6 women.
What kind of resources do we have in place to make sure that they're taken care of and they have a future?
Sex trafficking news articles are pretty common in mass. Boston and Mass in general have evolved sexually. It's gotten more hidden and more dangerous. I hope you enjoyed Boston's sexual history. Thanks for watching.